For as long back as I can remember, I've loved music. Music was a crucial part of my recovery. So when I started putting together this project, I wanted to involve music somehow. I reached out to a friend of mine, Al Keller, who's done a lot of projects like this, and asked him about music. And he mentioned possibly involving some local bands. And I thought, wow, I can't believe I didn't think of this. What better way to incorporate live music that's been a huge part of my life than through incorporating local bands? I was lucky enough through my 20s to work in a nightclub in the city here where I booked all the live music. And I tell you, some of the bands that came through that club were phenomenal. And I've kept track of a lot of those guys and followed a lot of those guys ever since. Lots of them are still playing and playing fantastic music. So when I started putting this together, I thought, with the advice of Al, I thought, wow, let's do this. Let's incorporate some local acts. So I've been listening to a lot of music from a good friend of mine, Chris Klein, who has his own individual stuff. He's also was in a band called Morley Sound and is currently in a band called Firing at the Sky. So I reached out to him, threw the idea at him, asked him if he wanted to send me some tracks, and he said, yeah, he would love to do it. So we incorporated those tracks at the beginning and the end of the videos. And Chris's music is going to be incorporated in the first 3 videos, possibly 4. And then I've reached out to some other great local acts, and they're going to be at the beginning and the end of the following videos. So please, you guys, check out the links at the end of the videos that from these local artists, and just hit them up on their music pages, because there just is so much great music that comes from this city, and I just love any opportunity to give back. So like I said, check out the beginning, check out the end, find out who the artist is, hit them up on Spotify or whatever music pages they are on, and just give these guys some support. Thanks, you guys. Good morning or good evening or whatever time it is that you're watching this. Welcome to the second part of our 11-part series, The Long Road of Recovery, called Looking Out for Number One. This session will primarily be about self-care and the benefits of self-care. I know, some of you guys are already rolling your eyes going, oh, not another session on self-care. This guy's probably going to talk about meditation or how it's so important that I breathe, or maybe I should go run myself a bath and get a lavender bath bomb and a vanilla candle and my favorite Brene Brown book and go climb in the tub. And I'm here to tell you that this session on self-care is not about that at all. Now, I don't want to lie to you and say that I'm not going to talk about any of those things, because some of those topics will come up. I will talk briefly about meditation. I will talk briefly about sometimes how it's important to breathe, and I may even talk about some baths here or there. But I think the most important part of this session to me is just to give you guys my outlook on self-care. As I mentioned in the first video, if you guys got a chance to see it, what's going to work for me isn't necessarily going to work for you guys. But I think with the outline I have for this self-care video, this looking out for number one, I think that this will really give you guys an idea of how you can really practice self-care and find the time for it. When I was struggling with my mental illnesses and my addictions, I found that my self-care basically went out the window. I really wasn't looking after myself at all. You know, I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't sleeping. I hardly got any physical activity, like physical fitness at all. I was drinking 40 to 80 ounces of alcohol a day and using cocaine. Obviously not good self-care. I was not looking after myself mentally. I didn't have very positive thoughts going on at that point in time. Emotionally, I was a mess. I never actually outright said or acted on the thoughts of suicide, but I was trying to drink myself to death every day. So I definitely wasn't in a good spot emotionally, and spiritually, I really didn't believe in anything at all. I had lost all faith in everything. So when I started this long road of recovery, I quickly began to realize how important self-care was for me, and how that self-care wasn't this little title that everyone had gave it. It wasn't just this. It wasn't just the breathing. It wasn't just the bath. It was so much more. And what I really realized from different treatment centers and different places that I had been, and many different places, is that there was a few things that really worked for me. And one of the things was a check-in, a daily check-in. So basically, in the mornings or sometimes after lunch or maybe even at night, if I realize that something doesn't feel right, if something's not jiving with me, if I'm like maybe agitated or I feel really run down or I'm having some negative thoughts, I'll do a check-in. And what I'll do is I'll be like, okay, how do I feel physically? Physically, I feel good. How do I feel mentally? Okay, mentally, I'm not doing the greatest today. Emotionally, I'm feeling agitated. Spiritually, I'm not connected. I'll do that check-in and just see where I'm at. After picking up this checklist, I would start to refer to this checklist as somewhat of a holistic approach to my healing. And after looking into holistic approaches to healing, I see there's like tons of different people who have many different ideas on holistic approaches. So I want you guys to remember that this is my idea of my holistic approach to my healing. And so as I said, I would check in mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I found in lots of programs that I went through, I think I was initially introduced to it as the wellness wheel. And then I went through, when I went through my mental health and wellness and addictions program at SIIT, I found out that the wellness wheel had been something that had been a spin-off, I guess, so to speak, of the indigenous approach towards it, which was the medicine wheel. And in the medicine wheel, there's the quadrants. There's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual quadrants. And I started to realize that this holistic approach, this approach around the medicine wheel, it really worked for me. When I looked into each quadrant to see how I was doing each day, I was really starting to be able to get my whole self, that holistic approach. I was really starting to get that all in check. And I definitely cannot teach you about the medicine wheel, but there's some amazing teachings around the medicine wheel. And what I would strongly suggest is if you're interested in learning about that in whole, it's such amazing teachings that you try and connect with an elder in your community, in the indigenous community, and have them tell you the story behind the medicine wheel. It's amazing. Over the last couple of years, I've had the privilege of running some men's groups through my job. And the men have really gravitated to this holistic approach behind the self-care, and especially the check-ins, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual check-ins, as well as the medicine wheel approach as a whole. And what we've come up with is we've come up with two really positive ways to make this work for yourself. So the first way I'm going to explain, there's also going to be a diagram that flashes up on the screen. It's taking the medicine wheel and dividing it into quadrants, which it'll already be done, and in each quadrant on that line marking out 10 little ticks. So your P would be at the top and you'd have 10 ticks that went down to the middle, and same on all the other 4 lines going out to the sides and running vertically and diagonally. So you'd have 20 ticks on the vertical line and 20 ticks on the diagonal line. And so you would score yourself out of 10. So you would say physically today, I feel good. I have no aches and pains. I slept well. I feel well rested. I'm not hungry. I score myself an 8. Mentally, I woke up this morning. I got everything in order. I feel sharp. When people ask me questions, I can fire right back. Mentally, I'm feeling good. I'm going to give myself an 8 there. Emotionally, I seem to be a little bit agitated today. Something's bothering me. I can't put a finger on it. Maybe I'm a 4. And spiritually, I haven't done my meditation. I haven't done my yoga. I haven't listened to my music. I haven't been to church. I haven't prayed in a long time. I score myself a 3. And that way you can really look at, okay, physically and mentally, I'm doing great. But emotionally and spiritually, I'm not doing well. Why is this? Why are these areas lacking? And it really helps you look inside yourself and just kind of figure out what's going on. For me, maybe it's exactly what I said. Maybe I haven't been to church for a while if I'm a churchgoer. Maybe I haven't been doing my daily meditations. Maybe that's why I'm low. So what do I got to do to fix that? I got to start bringing that stuff back into my life. If my physical side dips, Maybe maybe I have to start listening, or I have to start going to the gym. Maybe I haven't been sleeping worth a crap. So I need to start going to bed a little bit earlier, or focusing on getting some better sleep. Maybe I haven't been eating properly. I've been filling myself full of junk. That really messes with me. So you see what I'm getting at? You see how you can kind of work. If you mark yourself out of a 10 in those quadrants, you can really figure out what part of your holistic self is starting to dip, and you can work on that part. I think another thing that we found so important when we were talking about this in the groups is that we're also different. Every single person is completely different than the other person. So what works for me physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, what that looks like for me may be completely different to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down each quadrant, and I'm going to give you some ideas of what the physical side is, what the mental side is, what the emotional side is, and what the spiritual side is. And then you can plug in what works for you. I'm going to use myself, so the examples in here are going to be my examples, but you'll get the idea, and you'll be able to go, well, yeah, I'm not a gym person, but I do love to do yoga. So you can put that in, right? So I'm going to start with the physical side. So physically, for me, I am a gym person. It helps me. I feel good. It releases endorphins. And I also have a very stressful job. So it's my way of kind of taking out some of the stress and aggressions from my job, so that it doesn't flow over onto my family, right? So this is very important to me. I also I do enjoy yoga. I mentioned before, physically, I think sleeping is important. I try to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I eat healthy. Ever since I was diagnosed with cancer and my doctor told me that there was a high likelihood of reoccurrence if I didn't eat properly, I've been really watching my diet, and I've noticed a huge change holistically as a whole just from changing my diet. Maybe grounding, getting outside in the summertime, bare feet on grass. Like there's studies behind this that prove that this is an amazing healing thing for you. Maybe, just anything connecting to nature. When I went to school at SINT, the indigenous people, land-based healing, nature, all that stuff, it's such a fantastic way of keeping yourself holistically healthy. Mentally, I like to just talk about things in this quadrant that I do to keep me mentally sharp. So, pardon me, reading, writing, I listen to podcasts, any type of learning about any thing related to my field, or just anything in general. I really just enjoy that, like, especially if it's something that I have a desire to learn about. I practice positivity. I have learned mentally to replace negative thoughts, which has been big for me. If something's really bothering me, I've learned ways to process it and move on from it rather than dwelling on it. And I think the most important one that I've realized lately, for my mental well-being, is the amount of time I spend on social media, and what I look at when I'm on social media, and then trying to figure out what's true and what's not true. Because I mean, that social media, especially in the middle of this pandemic, all this stuff can really have a serious effect on your mental well-being. So I suggest, if the social media is becoming too much and all that stuff is becoming too much, take a break from it. I did it for a while, and it was probably the best I ever felt. And to be honest, if I didn't use social media for platforms like this, I might never go on it, because it really isn't mentally healthy for me. The emotional quadrant. I know lots of people will think like, oh, we should put joy and happiness and love and contentness and all that kind of stuff in there. It's that's not. You can do that, but what I try to do in my emotional category is put things in there that led me to those feelings, to those emotions. What brings me joy? What makes me happy? So I have stuff like being vulnerable, processing emotions, talking and sharing, allowing myself to feel, no matter how it is, no matter what feeling it is, allowing it, processing it, and then moving on from it. I go to counseling to help with my emotions. I've set boundaries. I practice positive affirmations, things like that. I like to put into my quadrant actions that can lead to the emotional feelings.
And the last one is the spiritual aspect. And everybody always gets caught up on this. I hear in my men's groups all the time, I don't believe in God. I'm not a spiritual person. I encourage you to find something that makes your soul feel good. It makes you happy. And that's a spiritual thing. For me, it can be breathing. It can be that breathing piece that people talk about. It for some people it's prayer. For some it's meditation. Nature. Nature is huge in the spiritual, especially in the indigenous culture. That they a lot of their spiritual teachings are around nature as well. Music for me. Music has been. I honestly don't know that I would have healed if I would have came as far as I came if it wasn't for music. Writing, poetry, connecting with a higher power. Some people take baths. Journaling, storytelling. This is healing for me. This is spiritual for me. All of these things are very spiritual. So don't pigeonhole the spiritual piece into strictly religion. If church is for you, do church. If meditation's for you, do meditation. If yoga's for you, do yoga. If the outside is for you, then get outside and connect with nature. Don't get hung up on that spiritual piece. So we kind of just summed up all four quadrants: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And now you can plug in, make a list, make 4 titles, and drop in what works for you. And then try and make sure you're making time to do that. And I know there's already you people out there that got your arms crossed and your brows are furrowed and you're mad at me already and you're like, well, Brad, where do we find the time? We just don't have the time. And I just want to challenge you guys. I go to the gym. I do these videos. I read. I do tons of stuff that every day that improves my self-care. And I've had people say to me, well, it must be nice to have that kind of time. I have that kind of time because I don't do things for me that are unhealthy. Or I've actually prioritized things. I've thought, okay, is what's more important to me? An hour on social media or an hour on the gym? In the gym. In the summertime, sometimes I like to get up earlier because I like to be outside. I like to take a walk. I like to have my earbuds in sometimes and sometimes out just listening to nature and doing that before work because it's a great way to start the day. How do I make time? I get up a little earlier. I prioritize what's important in my life. And I heard this great counselor, he talked about this all the time. Someone would come up with an excuse. Well, I just don't have the time. And he would say, why? Why don't you have the time? And they'd be like, well, there's dishes in the sink. And are the dishes more important than your self-care? No. Well, then make the time, right? Why can't you do this? You tell me. Tell me why. Because if the things that you're doing are less important than your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being, it's no longer a matter of time, it's a matter of priorities. And I encourage you guys to take a little bit of this self-care, this time, this looking out for number one. I encourage you guys to do it every day. Just chalk out a time that's 30 minutes here or there that works for you. Maybe you have to say to the kids, you know what? It's okay to have your tablet for this half hour. Go play Roblox or whatever they play nowadays. Mom needs to have a bath. That's okay. Do what you need to do. Maybe you just need to take that time so you don't have a breakdown, have that spillover where all of a sudden things seem so bad that you lash out at your children or something like that. Take a little bit for you every day. And like I said, if you look at your schedule, then and you don't have self-care in your schedule, you need to fit it in because it's more important than a lot of the other things you're doing in your life. And don't I see this thing all the time where people are like, they put together one day, they put aside one day of the week. Oh, it's self-care Saturday. Saturday morning, I'm going to draw myself a bath. I'm going to light my candle. I'm going to read my book. I'm going to have my favorite tea. And then I'm going to get out and I'm going to lotion my body and paint my nails. And then something comes up. And self-care Saturday doesn't come in. This is not about making it one whole day. It's about taking a little bit of that time and caring for yourself every day. For me, it's the gym. For me, it's turning the television off for 20 minutes before bed and reading, or not going on social media right after stuff, or instead picking up a book or playing a board game with my kids, stuff like that. That's important to me. So I encourage you guys, don't block off that one day. Don't have your self-care Saturday. Have a little bit of time every day to do stuff that you need to keep you well. And also continue to check in. How am I doing mentally? How am I doing physically? How am I doing spiritually? How am I doing emotionally? Why am I low in this quadrant? Maybe it's because I need to take that bath. Maybe it's because I need a little time. Maybe I haven't been to the gym. Maybe I've been eating like shit. Maybe whatever. Check in and then just do little fixes. Everything doesn't have to be a big fix all at once. It's taken me 9 years to develop a somewhat of a self-care plan that works for me, and it's still a work in progress every day. So I encourage you guys, take that little bit of time, make sure you fall back on what I've been saying here if you can. Make your lists, your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual list. Do your checklist in the morning. How am I doing here? And then work on scheduling this in. And please, don't tell me you don't have time, because I'll just ask you why. So before I close out this session looking out for number one, I want to just encourage you guys to really, find your own way. Make your own path when it comes to your self-care journey. You're looking out for number one, because it's for you. It's for nobody else. So and continue to look into what's going to work for you, because there's ever-changing things, and you change too. I've poked a lot of fun throughout this video at lighting a candle, taking a bath, your favorite lavender or grapefruit bath salts, or whatever you use, the essential oils maybe. But you know what? And reading your favorite Brene Brown book. And just last week I found myself in the tub with some bath salts reading a Brene Brown book, and it worked for me. What works for you one week may not work for you the next week. It's also important to remember to do that check-in, that holistic check-in. How am I feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Because if you're low in one quadrant, you might have to do something different that week for self-care. Maybe you haven't been sleeping enough, so maybe you need extra sleep. Maybe you're feeling emotionally drained, so you just need that tub and that book. Whatever's going to work for you. I encourage you guys to keep making this self-care journey about you. Obviously, it makes sense for me to tell you to look after you. It's called self-care, not others' care. So, like I said, please keep doing this. And before I go, I want to ask you these 3 questions. And I encourage you to continue to ask yourself these 3 questions. What is important in my own self-care? Why is my own self-care important to me? And am I making the time to practice my own self-care? And if I'm not, why not?
Temptation's hooks are gripped firmly within this soul of mine. The harder I push you away, the worse I want you in my life. This trenchant mouth, this wretched tongue, want to taste the doubt away. I try to walk or try to run, but my feet are here to stay. Opportunity presents, my veins they open wide. The blood it rushes to my heart and pushes sense aside. I can't explain the way I feel to those who've never known. The way you make me real inside, I cannot ever show. Cannot ever show. no use